So Manuela Gosner then leading the race. There is the Christian Kinch car being chased by Tommy Lindroth, the two Swedes together there. And there you can see the Formula Racing team going to work on that Eric Chung car. I mean, the engineer is almost in the engine bay there. And big problems across the final turn, which we're not seeing, but we can see from our commentary position. And that was Murat Kuhadaroglu and Corinna Gosner getting very physical in replay. Here is the race leader, Manuela Gosner. Then it's Prenot, then it is Herney, then Lovett and Skeltermar. So, as I say, I could just see from the corner of my eye as they exited the final turn, Thomas Gosner, I think it was, that was perhaps in strife there. So we're following the Rick Lovett and von Skeltermar battle at the moment. Rick Lovett ahead of von Skeltermar. It's P4 and P5. Rick Lovett trying to reel in the car of Christoph Herney. Murat Kuhadaroglu is... I would have said Murat Kuhadaroglu is ahead of Alexander Nussbaumer. And... that, of course, in the battle for the AMS, because, of course, he was ahead of, or is ahead of, Corinna Gosner and Thomas Gosner, and it's Thomas Gosner we felt that may have had trouble in that final turn. In the meantime, Rick Lovett is really having to defend here from von Skeltermar. So this is the battle in the race for P4 at the moment between von Skeltermar and Rick Lovett, as they make their way through that almost chicane section before going on to the sweeping turn where Rick Lovett is right now. This battle for P4, they run downhill again now. Murat Kuhadaroglu leading in the AMS, Manuela Gosner leading by 9/10 in the Shell drivers classification. Vladimir Hladic trying to reel in von Skeltermar at the moment as they make their way out of the final turn number 16, and head towards the timing line once again, and down into turn number 1 as Manuela Gosner sets the fastest lap, a 1:52.357 from Manuela Gosner, who's leading the race then from Eric Prenot, who for the moment is not able to take anything to her. They're just a couple of 100ths difference in terms of lap time, but this is Christoph Herney then, who's in that P3 position. He took the win yesterday and also pole position, but Christoph Herney is P3 at the moment. So the order is Manuela Gosner, Eric Prenot, Christoph Herney, then it's Rick Lovett, von Skeltermar and Vladimir Hladic. Top 6 places all going to, at the moment, the Shell drivers. Murat Kuhadaroglu, the quickest of the AM drivers in P7 overall, ahead of Corinna and Thomas Gosner, and Alexander Nussbaumer, second in AMs, but is P10 in the race overall. Completing the AM top 3 at the moment is Dusan Palkra, who is in P13 in the race overall. Cyril then, who's von Skeltermar's partner, looks on then as von Skeltermar continues to try and chase down Rick Lovett for that P4 place. And here we can see that very battle now. The gap between them is merely 6/10 between Rick Lovett, the Canadian-based racer, and von Skeltermar. So, as you can see, tracks Rick Lovett through every curbstone almost, trying to find a way past the Octane 126 engineered Rick Lovett now. Rick Lovett, though, making the car... Oh, as Fon's just taking a look to the inside there. It was never really on, but what he's trying to do is just keep the pressure on Rick Lovett here, and he's doing that. There's the pit in as the cars make their way through turn number 16, the Catalunya turn here at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. Vladimir Hladic at the moment is not quite able to reel in von Skeltermar and Rick Lovett. Still some distance behind. So Manuela Gosner then has just had a few tenths taken out of her gap at the front. It's 6/10 now. So the 177 car of von Skeltermar as they watch from the Kessel garage. Running in P5, and as you can see, Skeltermar last lap was some 3/10 quicker than Rick Lovett, but it's all very well being 3/10 quicker. You've got to find a way past also, and that notoriously difficult, it has to be said. So Manuela Gosner then, P1, P2 is Eric Prinot, and Eric Chung got back out onto track once again. Inevitably, the Formula Racing, we could see the engineers working so hard on the car, and they managed to get the car out and running again, but you can see it's failed once again. So poor Eric Chung is having a torrid time of it. Now, all of a sudden, Eric Prinot gets a bit closer to Manuel Agostner. So Eric Chung, very much, he would have been maybe a couple of laps down on the rest of the pack when he re-entered the race, following the engineers from Formula Racing working on the car. Now finds himself with the whatever the problem was reoccurring, and is presumably going to nurse the car back to the pit lane. Manuel Agostner needs to make this car as wide as possible as Eric Prinot sets the fastest lap. No surprise there, because he's really caught up with Manuel Agostner. And she now's gives the loud pedal everything she possibly can, going across the start-finish line, heading in towards that turn number one. The first five drivers have broken away somewhat from the rest of the pack. So Manuela brakes now, turns into the right-hander, and Eric Prinot through the speed trap at 270 kilometers per hour, as you can see. First 8 minutes of the race for the Coppa Shell drivers has elapsed now. And Eric Prinot then continuing to chase down the lady racer that is from the same team, the Ineco MP team. And of course, what would play into the hands of Christoph Herney, and he'll be hoping that Eric Prinot can get on terms with Manuel Agostner, because inevitably as they start fighting amongst themselves, it will slow them both and allow Christoph Herney perhaps the opportunity to try and make it 2 out of 2 this weekend. Eric Prinot was a bit ragged out of that turn. Manuela Agostner, meantime, looks utterly poised and perfection through every turn, although she took quite a lot of the sausage curb there, as you could see. But she knows that Eric Prinot is ready to pounce, and any one error from Manuela Agostner, and Eric Prinot would like to be in a position to be able to take advantage. But as you can see, Manuela has responded by opening another 4 tenths, perhaps even 5 or 6 tenths over Eric Prinot, helped by the fact that he looked slightly raggy, to be honest, through that turn. Murat Kuhardaroglu and Corinna Gostner, who their affair on track got very physical just on the opening lap, when there was quite a lot of touching going on between the two of them. But Murat Kuhardaroglu for the moment is ahead of Corinna Gostner, sister of course to Manuela, who is currently leading the race. And in so doing, Murat Kuhardaroglu is leading the AM classification. I should remind you that Murat Kuhardaroglu and Corinna Gostner are racing in different classes in this race. One is an AM driver, one is a Shell driver. So it's Murat Kuhardaroglu who is the AM driver, and of course leading the AM championship at the moment, being chased by Alexander Nussbaumer. But he's got a pair of Gostners between himself and Murat Kuhardaroglu at the moment, running in P8 and P9 in the race overall. There's Christoph Herney then. Still not quite able to get on terms. And Eric Prinot is really losing time now relative to Manuela Gostner. Manuela Gostner was a full 4 tenths quicker in the last lap, and just does a personal best through Sector 1 as well. So Manuela really mealing business here. And Eric Prinot, a valiant effort over the first 10 minutes or so of the race to try and keep with Manuela Gostner, but she's just beginning to stretch her legs now, and Eric Prinot has got a problem. Whether he just missed a gear or something coming out of that turn, because Christoph Herney was gifted the inside line and he took it. And so now Christoph Herney will put the chase on to Manuela Gostner. He's got about a 1.5 seconds, maybe 1 second and 2 tenths. There is Monica, who's Eric Prinot's partner, as the Eric Chung car is once again brought into the pit lane. Are they sending the car out again? I think so, rather than retiring it. So the Eric Prinot losing out P2 to Christoph Herney, I have to say, looked too good to be true for Christoph Herney. It looked like Eric, there was something as he came out of that turn, whether he just missed a gear or made a slight error. But it was gifted to Christoph Herney, and he didn't need the invitation twice. And as you can see, now that he has got past Eric Prinot, he is able to get up the road. So the gap now between Manuela Gostner and Christoph Herney as they cross the timing line is actually much greater than I thought it was. It's 2.8 seconds. So Herney has got some work to do now over the remaining 18.5 minutes of this race to get on terms with Manuel Agosna, but he will try for all he's worth to do so. Rick Lovett continues to defend from von Skeltermar, though he's not having to defend too hard at the moment because the gap between the two of them is 8/10, as you can see. Leader in the AMS is Murat Kuhaduruglu. So Rick Lovett, von Skeltermar, this the battle for P4 and P5 in the race that is continuing, but Rick Lovett, it has to be said, is not looking at all threatened by von Skeltermar at this moment. He did earlier on in the race, but seems to have seen off the challenge there. So whatever it was with Eric Prinot, it seems to have sorted itself out, which therefore leads me to believe that Eric Prinot made a slight error. Standings in the AM class, as you can see on screen, Kuhaduruglu ahead of Alexander Nussbaumer. Then it's Dusan Palkra, David Lim, and Ingvar Madsen. And Ingvar Madsen getting past David Lim very, very easily as well. In fact, in almost the same place that Christoph Herney went past Eric Prinot. So Ingvar Madsen now finds himself P4 in the AM class, and David Lim relegated to P5. David Lim, who was on the back foot from the start of the race because his qualifying, damage on the car, and that really compromised his qualifying. But that compromised Ingvar Madsen's exit, as David Lim will get back past him now. Ingvar Madsen then taking a really unorthodox route. I wonder if he's got a deflating tyre or something, because he was all over the shop there, Ingvar Madsen. Well, he gets it back together now, and having overtaken David Lim in a seemingly gifted overtake, he's going to have to try and do it all over again. And this is where it all went wrong for Ingvar Madsen, going downhill. No, this was the overtake on David Lim, which was gifted to him initially. And then as he carries so much speed, so go on board with Ingvar Madsen. So David Lim making an error then and running wide. That allowed Ingvar Madsen to go through. Manuel Agosna extends her lead to 3 seconds now over Christoph Herney. It's actually 3.1, so looking pretty comfortable here for Manuel Agosna with just under 16 minutes of the race remaining. 3.153, as you can see, over Christoph Herney, who is P2. You can just see the all-yellow car of Christoph Herney to the back of that previous shot. And you'll see it crossing the crest of the hill now. Manuel Agosna holding on to it nicely. So Manuel Agosna, Christoph Herney, Eric Prinot, Rick Lovett, von Skeltermar, Vladimir Haladik, the top 6. In the meantime, the two Agosnas together here. We have Agosna leading the race, and then we have Corinna Agosna in P8 and Thomas Agosna in P9. So Corinna Agosna then with the pink colours on her car, and Thomas Agosna here spotting an opportunity to perhaps go past Corinna, but wasn't quite able to do so around that particular turn, going around turn number 12 now for Corinna Agosna before running downhill towards turn number 13. And then into that chicane sequence, which is turn 14 and 15, which is where the cars are now, before coming out and around turn number 16, the right-hander, to lead us back into the start-finish straight once again. So, half the race duration is done and dusted, and Manuel Agosna just losing out a little bit in terms of lap time to Christoph Herney last lap, only by a couple of tenths or so. But even so, Christoph Herney was marginally quicker than Manuel Agosna, but she's got a really good comfort gap ahead of her of some 2.9 seconds, or between her and the Christoph Herney car that's chasing in P2. Corinna and Thomas Agosna then, and behind them is Alexander Nussbaumer, who yesterday, right at the start of the race, was able to put himself ahead of Murat Kuhaduruglu. This time around, Murat made sure that he stayed in that leading AM position, and the man that's having to do the chasing now is Alexander Nussbaumer, and he's got the two Agosna cars between himself and Murat Kuhaduruglu. Behind Alexander Nussbaumer is Christian Kinch, running in P11. And behind Christian Kinch is the Tommy Lindroth car. So you can see who's done what and where from the graphics that were there on the left-hand side of your screen. And, well, Ingvar Madsen has once again got past David Lim, following the little seesaw battle between the two of those. So Ingvar Madsen now finds himself ahead once again of David Lim. And here is how he did it then. Put himself on the inside. And went past the 168 car for the second time in the race thus far. So he'd overtaken him for the first time and then made a huge error. And that allowed David Lim to get back past the Madsen liveried car. So Ingvar Madsen, who, as I mentioned, for much of the season has been hugely successful. Here it is in replay. Was there a touch between the two of them? Well, David Lim with the discretion, the better part of valor there, as he turned out of that to ensure there was no contact, if indeed there was. Von Skeltermar now ahead of Eric Prinot. So what has happened to Rick Lovett then? Because Rick Lovett was ahead of Von Skeltermar. So Von Skeltermar has put himself ahead not only of Rick Lovett but also of Eric Prinot too. So hopefully we'll get a replay of that, because we did not see that live. And oh, Eric Prinot with a problem. You can see he's pulled to the right hand side of the track. Vladimir Hladik has gone through. Well, there's obviously an intermittent fault with the car, isn't there? Because we saw him slow earlier on, and poor old Eric Prinot, he's not had a brilliant weekend here in Barcelona, it has to be said. And, well, whilst all that's going on, and Eric Prinot is slowing, as I said, well, I wonder whether Rick Lovett has got a problem as well, because Vladimir Hladik is right alongside him. Von Skeltermar has already got past Rick Lovett, which we didn't see that overtake live. We're watching the car of Eric Prinot, which is almost grinding to a halt. He's trying to nurse the car back to the pit lane. Von Skeltermar now finds himself in a podium place, P3, and that's why I say Rick Lovett looks significantly slower, because Vladimir Hladik is right on the back of Rick Lovett now, the Canadian racer. He is our race leader. The gap was 2.8 seconds between Manuel Agostina and Christoph Herney, and as they cross the timing line now, it remains well, actually, Manuel Agostina has responded a little bit. It's gone up to 2.9 seconds. So there's Skeltermar in P3. Lovett is now P4, but being chased hard by Vladimir Hladik, who, as you can see, is 0.2 quicker. So Vladimir Hladik in car number 144 then is chasing down the Rick Lovett car. So, okay, back to the story of how did Von Skeltermar get past Rick Lovett? Was it a mistake? Rick Lovett just looked to be slowing a little bit, but whether that is actually the case or not, I don't know. But whether Rick Lovett made an error and Von Skeltermar was able to take advantage of that, Skeltermar now is certainly up the road. As you can see from Rick Lovett, he's put on something like 9/10 between the two of them. Actually, it's more than that. It's 2.2 between himself and Rick Lovett now. 2.2 seconds he's opened up in the space of about a lap and a half. So Skeltermar obviously quicker than Rick Lovett. Rick Lovett, the Octane 126 driver then, who now is very conscious of the fact he's got the Vladimir Hladik car breathing down his neck. Well, this intermittent fault that's affecting the Eric Prinot car is still out there, as you can see. There he is, but he's running down there in P6 at the moment. So I can't begin to imagine what the problem is. So Skeltermar by this time had got past Lovett. Then he had to take evasive action to dive to the inside of Eric Prinot, who was slowing. And Rick Lovett would also find his way past Eric Prinot too. But by that time, Von Skeltermar had put himself ahead of Rick Lovett. You will recall he'd been chasing and chasing and chasing, and did manage to put himself ahead of the car 112. So rounding turn 16 and crossing the start-finish line once again. Manuel Agostina with 3 seconds to the good over Christoph Herney. Then it's Von Skeltermar in the final podium place at the moment. P3 in that car, car number 177, engineered by Kessel Racing. And Rick Lovett, for the moment, has seen off the challenge from Vladimir Hladik and has opened up a bit of a margin between himself and Vladimir Hladik now of 1.6 seconds. So whether Rick Lovett now, he lapped in the 1:53.4s, was 4/10 quicker actually than von Skeltermaar. Whether the chase back is on now, but with only 8.5 minutes or just under remaining in this race, Eric Prenot now seems to have got everything together once again. So whatever intermittent fault Eric Prenot had has gone away. Murat Kuhardaroglu now is perhaps feeling the pressure of Corinna Gosner as she's broken away from her father Thomas a little bit now, and Murat Kuhardaroglu, who is leading in the AM class, ahead of Alexander Nussbaumer, who's a further 2 cars behind and actually not really on the pace, as now Eric Prenot slows once again, and Murat Kuhardaroglu is able to put himself ahead of the Ineco MP car, which is clearly intermittently failing. And Corinna Gosner from the same team is going to try and come past as Eric Prenot now goes into a fight here with Murat Kuhardaroglu. They're in separate classifications, so Murat does keep his position ahead of Eric Prenot. Eric Prenot then with Corinna Gosner right behind him now. So the back end of the car stepped out a little bit there on the Eric Prenot machine, but tyre deg is not enough to have caused the slowing that we've seen in that car over the course of the last couple of laps. You can see that it's building up and becoming something of a cork in a bottle now, because he's got 2 cars now from the same team right behind him. Corinna Gosner, Thomas Gosner, and Alexander Nussbaumer is beginning to join into that little party as well. So it's really, really curious whatever is happening with that car number 181. Will Corinna dive to the inside? Not close enough to be able to do so. So Corinna Gosner then in the 173 car, sister of course of the driver that's leading the race by 2 seconds. The gap has come down at the front actually by a significant amount, as Christoph Herney now has turned up the hurry-up pedal. So Eric Prenot again with this problem that seems to just intermittently occur around the lap. Corinna Gosner has managed to get past. He makes the car very wide and doesn't make it very easy for Thomas Gosner, but now on the inside Thomas will switch. And is racing room left by Eric Prenot? Yes, there is, ish. And Eric Prenot run out wide, and here comes Alexander Nussbaumer, who will be able to go through on Eric Prenot as well. So Prenot, well, he's doing his level best to try and drive through whatever issues the car has got, but you know, it's fundamental pace that he's lacking in certain parts of the track. And all of a sudden, von Skeltermaar with a problem as well, because he's dropped down to P5, having been passed by Rick Lovett and Vladimir Hladek. So hopefully we'll get a replay of that, because that's pretty critical in terms of the podium places. There is von Skeltermaar. So he has lost out, and this is how it happened. He ran wide. Oh, it's a big save from Fons. He went through the grass, tarmac, gravel. He did manage to get it back out on track, thanks to our team for getting us that replay so quickly. So all of a sudden, Rick Lovett is in a podium place now, and all of a sudden, as I mentioned just before we looked at that, Christoph Herney has put his foot on the gas and has now narrowed the gap to Manuel Gosner to 1.4 seconds by doing a 1:52.115, nearly a whole second. Cyril von Skeltermaar's partner looks on. She knows that the podium place has gone away now, but this is the gap that is critical. It's gone from 2.9 to 2.3 to 1.4 now between Manuel Gosner and Christoph Herney. This would be Manuel Gosner's first win overall if it stayed this way for the remaining 4.5 minutes. However, Christoph Herney is chasing. Christoph Herney, who took the win yesterday, sets the fastest lap, a 1:52.115. So undoubtedly the gap is coming down to Manuel Gosner, as Christoph Herney, obviously he's conserved his tyres particularly well, and he's now able to put the chase on to Manuel Gosner over the closing stages of this race. So the order then has changed somewhat. Further back, for the final podium place, it's Rick Lovett P3, then it's Vladimir Hladek and von Skeltermaar. But this is the battle that we're watching at the moment, and which will rage for the final 4 minutes of this race. Manuel Gosner had done such a good job in maintaining a gap at the front. But as I say, Christoph Herney now, it was 1.4 seconds as they crossed the timing line last time around. It's down to 1.2 now. another 0.2 quicker. However, with 1.2, it's not enough. He needs to be significantly quicker. Not only significantly quicker, he's got to find a way past as well. Look how they have broken away from the P3 driver. They are something like 16 seconds up the road from Rick Lovett, Vladimir Hladic, von Skeltermar, Murat Kuhaduroglu, Corinna Gosner, Thomas Gosner, and Alexander Nussbaumer and Christian Kinch. So Murat Kuhaduroglu, the car, the centre picture now, is the leader in the AM race. Continuing to be chased by Corinna and Thomas Gosner. And Eric Prinot is dropping further down the order as well with whatever problems he's got in that car. So Manuela Gosner responding a little here by doing a PB in Sector 1 of this lap. So Murat Kuhaduroglu then, who actually his fight with Corinna Gosner here is not critical in terms of the points that he will bank. Because they are in two separate classes. It's AM versus Shell at the moment. So Murat Kuhaduroglu, and they eventually retire the Eric Prinot car. I'll try and listen in, but of course it will all be in Italian. So just the remainder of this lap plus one more to be done. And there is Murat Kuhaduroglu, this in replay, as he almost launches the car over the curb, and launching the car across the gravel and the sand is Thomas Gosner, who will have lost out, therefore, to Alexander Nussbaumer. So we're on to the last lap now. The gap has come down to 9/10 between Manuela Gosner and Christoph Ernie. It's going to be a fight to the finish here. Manuela Gosner, I don't think anyone in the paddock would deny her this win. If it goes her way, it would be the first overall win, and it would be richly deserved, but Christoph Ernie is going to keep her keen for it for the remainder of this lap. So 9/10, the margin between P1 and P2. We are on the last lap. Manuela Gosner will potentially need to stick her elbows out from Christoph Ernie, but actually he's only brought it down by 4/100ths, the gap between himself and the race leader. What Manuela needs not to do now is make any errors. Her driving has been absolutely fault-free for all the laps previous. And is Christoph Ernie hoping that the pressure that he is mounting is going to provoke a mistake, and in the final few hundred meters of tarmac, allow him to make it 2 out of 2 this weekend? The live gap between the two of them is down to 7/10 now. So Manuela Gosner has but a few turns to do, heading up to turn number 11 now. The long sweeping turn number 12, the right-hander. Then it is into turn number 13 as they run downhill now to reach the conclusion of the lap. Christoph Ernie pushing for all his worth as they go into the chicane now. Turns number 14, turn number 15. There's one more turn to do for Manuela Gosner then in car number 183. As she heads towards the checkered flag and takes her first overall win. It's richly deserved. Great driving from Manuela Gosner. She did not suffer the pressure of Christoph Ernie towards the end of the race. Good job from him as well in terms of catching Manuela. P2, Rick Lovett, who is some 18 seconds behind, will take a podium. P3, pretty sure it's Rick Lovett's first podium this year. Vladimir Hladic P4, von Skeltermar P5, and there you can see Manuela's driver coach Giorgio pretty delighted with that. Here comes Corinna Gosner ahead of Murat Kuhaduroglu. And here comes Thomas Gosner as well, and there is Alexander Nussbaumer. Ingvar Madsson was chasing Dusan Palkra across the line. Whoa. What a race that was. So on board with Ingvar Madsson then. So Christoph Ernie then P2. This is David Lim, who's taken the P14 place. And Manuel Agostina inside that car will be absolutely thrilled. Did all the hard work in qualifying, truthfully, and put the car into that P1 position. And apart from perhaps the last couple of laps, did not look threatened at all. And this was Ingvar Madsson and Dusan Palkra almost coming together. Ingvar Madsson did a good job in terms of just letting Dusan Palkra go there. There was the width of no more than a centimetre between contact being made. And this was Corinna Gosner then on Murat Kuhardaroglu, which was altogether a little bit more physical. But thankfully, Murat Kuhardaroglu had the ability to get the car turned around and stayed ahead of Alexander Nussbaumer. So the winner in the AMS then is Murat Kuhardaroglu. Top three in each class then. Manuel Agostina, Christoph Herney, Rick Lovett for the Shell drivers. Kuhardaroglu, Nussbaumer and Palkra. So Manuel Agostina then receiving lots and lots of adulation. And there is Christoph Herney, who took P2. And being congratulated. Manuel Agostina absolutely thrilled. And Rick Lovett then taking his first podium of the season. And that's good news for him and also for Octane 126 being embraced there by Björn Grossman. Right, there was quite a lot going on in that race. Let's take a look at the highlights now. So the cars behind the safety car at the start of the race then, and Manuel Agostina from pole position had the wingman Eric Prinot right alongside, but she got a very, very good start indeed and left the others for dust, truthfully. Christoph Herney challenged Eric Prinot early on, and then Rick Lovett finding himself ahead of von Skeltermar. Murat Kuhardaroglu and Alexander Nussbaumer with Corinna Gosner. As von Skeltermar's partner looked on, Eric Chung had problems in the race, the Formula Racing car, and Eric Prinot's partner Monica looked on as there was some intermittent fault with the Eric Prinot car, which caused him to slow at various points in the race, and unfortunately the same would befell that of Eric Chung, who struggled throughout the race to try and keep the car going. They ended up having to retire it. Ingvar Madsson and David Lim had a real ding-dong battle at various times during the course of the race. Von Skeltermar here getting past Eric Prinot, and Rick Lovett would do the same. Thomas Gosner was altogether a little bit more physical in getting past the slowing Eric Prinot car, but Manuel Agostina, the lady racer, would take her first win overall in the Ferrari Challenge, and it was richly deserved. So the checkered flag fell, and Manuel Agostina then the winner in the Shell drivers, and Murat Kuhardaroglu the winner in the AM drivers classification. Giorgio, the driver coach, then absolutely delighted, and Björn Grossman there from Octane 126, one of the Trofeo Pirelli drivers, making his congratulations as well. And von Skeltermar and Murat Kuhardaroglu side by side then. So we await the podium, which will be on its way shortly. And here, confirmation of the classification. Shell, first of all, Manuela Gosner from Christoph Herney, then Rick Lovett, Vladimir Haladik, von Skeltermar, Corinna and Thomas Gosner, Christian Kinch, Tommy Lindroth, and Eric Prinot rounding out the top 10 in the Shell drivers. And with the car below, let's head to the podium. So everyone ready for the podium. And Manuela Gosner will be so thrilled with that. She's threatened for a long time and has done it today here in Barcelona in Spain, taken the overall race win. So the Manuela Gosner car there is the Octane 126 team Yannick in the middle of the picture there, or sorry, to the right hand side of the picture now. And there is Rick Lovett's racing helmet, and he of course will be appearing on the podium in that P3 place alongside Christoph Herney and the race winner Manuela Gosner. So we can hear Michele Mambrelli then begin to light up the podium. There is Rick Lovett then, who will head to step 3 of the podium. Then it will be Christoph Herney on step 2. One down from his result yesterday. But taking the win and going to the top step of the podium, Manuela Gosner. And driver coach Massimo Pepe, team chief Massimo Pepe up there as well, and the national anthem will play out for Manuela Gosner. Well done, Manuela Gosner, and well done, the MP Racing team. So here we go with trophy presentation time then. And first of all to Rick Lovett then, who receives his trophy. Andrea Modena, the regional manager for Ferrari West Europe, making the trophy presentations. And also to Christoph Herney. And the race-winning trophy. Look at Corinna and the family looking on as Manuela Gosner receives the race winner's trophy. Lift your trophies. So champagne moment is not far away. And Earth, Wind and Fire plays out once again to celebrate the podium. The classic September. Top 3 then in the Shell drivers. Rick Lovett, P3. P2 went the way of the Team Zenith Cyan driver that was a race winner yesterday. That's car number 162, Christoph Herney. And P1, Manuela Gosner will remember this for a long, long time. Race winner here in Barcelona. And there, Manuela Gosner enjoying the champagne moment and suitably soaked from the champagne bottles of Rick Lovett and Christoph Herney as well. In the Drivers' Championship, then, Christoph Herney now 145.5 points. Eric Chung is 138. His DNF in today's race not helping. And Manuel Agostner now on 118 points in the Shell Drivers' Championship. So Daniele Diamato there talking to Thomas Gostner as already the AM podium is underway with... on the third step, Dusan Palkra. On the second step, it's Alexander Nussbaumer. And on the top step, Murat Kuhadaroglu. And national anthem to play out for Murat Kuhadaroglu now. Okay, we've had enough of that. Let's move on. And Miguel Molina, the Ferrari GT official driver, then making the trophy presentations. And Dusan Palkra receives his for P3. For P2, it is Alexander Nussbaumer, but for P1, it's Murat Kuhadaroglu. So Dusan Palkra, Alexander Nussbaumer, and Murat Kuhadaroglu receiving their trophies then. On to the first step of the podium, drivers, if you will, for the photographs. Lift your trophy up your trophy.
Okay, so up your trophy, Barcelona.
Oh, I love it.
Blue sky and the claps for the fun. And now is the moment of champagne.
And the champagne then as Murat Kuhadaroglu wins that race as well, and Alexander Nussbaumer and Dusan Palkra make sure that Murat gets plenty of it. So well done to Murat Kuhadaroglu. Here then, confirmation of the classification in terms of the AM drivers. Murat Kuhadaroglu taking the win from Alexander Nussbaumer and Dusan Palkra, Ingvar Madsen and David Lim. So, super slow-mos of the top three in the AMs then. Dusan Palkra in car number 117 taking P3. Taking P2 then is the 136 car of Alexander Nussbaumer, which you will see on your screens right now. And then taking the win, P7 in the race overall, but taking the win in the AMs, the white and red stripes of Murat Kuhadaroglu. So Trofeo Pirelli race to come a little later this afternoon. The two Coppa Shell races are done and dusted as we replay Murat Kuhadaroglu being positively mugged up there on the podium with the champagne from Alexander Nussbaumer and Dusan Palkra. And making quite a mess of the backdrop, it has to be said. Here at the Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona then. A very good Coppa Shell race. And in the AM Drivers' Championship, as you can see now, Murat Kuhadaroglu, 172 points, just 8.5 behind is Alexander Nussbaumer in P2. Then it's Ingvar Madsen now dropped down to P3. Agata Smolka, who obviously had a problem with the car, not out on the track today, sadly. Hopefully all be sorted out when the cars head off to Monza, which is the next event, of course, in terms of the Coppa Shell drivers. Next race, though, on air is Trofeo Pirelli Race 2 at 13:35 GMT. Please make sure you join us for that. And thank you so much for enjoying the Coppa Race 2 here at Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. For now, bye-bye.